9 weeks after I buried my mother, 2 deputies walked me out of her kitchen in handcuffs. My sister watched from the end of the driveway with her arms folded, the way you stand when you are waiting on a delivery. The paperwork said I had taken $40,000 from a dying woman. The dying woman was the one who taught me to keep receipts. She used to say 4 words to me, over and over, for 30 years, and I never once thought of them as protection. They got read out loud, later, in a courtroom, in front of every person in that town who had already decided what I was. 7 years before that, I had packed my life into the bed of a truck and moved into her back bedroom, and my sister sent a card with a cat on it. If you have ever been the one who stayed while everybody else sent flowers, you know what that costs. What you might not know yet is what it turns into when a house and a will and your own sister end up in front of a judge. Her name was Ruth. She kept the books for a feed store for 31 years, and she could find a $2 error in a month of ledgers with her thumb. And when the stroke took the right side of her, she was 68. And the first thing she asked was whether the store would come up short at close. I was 39 and installing garage doors. My sister Vanessa lived an hour and 10 minutes away, in a house with a lawn service. She is very good at arriving. Casseroles, a hug, a photo on the porch with Mom in the good chair gone by 4. 7 years, and I could count her overnights on one hand and have fingers left over. I am not going to sit here and tell you I was a good son, Ed. I will tell you that I learned to braid hair off a video, because after the stroke, Mom could not lift her left arm, and she hated the way the aide did it. I wrote on every light switch in that house in black marker because she got turned around at night. I read her the seed catalog in February like it was news. Somewhere in the 4th year, she started calling me by her brother's name in the evenings and by mine in the mornings. And through all of it, whenever anything happened that mattered, she said the same 4 words. Write it down, Danny. Write it down, or it did not happen. I thought it was bookkeeper talk. I thought the way you think when you have been raised nice. That family sorts itself out in the end. That you do not make a fuss. That is the part I would go back and fix. 2 years before she died, on a good Tuesday, Mom had me drive her to a lawyer on the square. She had called and made the appointment herself, which I did not find out until we were sitting in the parking lot. She signed a paper that put the house in my name the day she died, and that same week her doctor wrote a letter saying she knew what she was signing. I sat in the waiting room for that part, and I want that on the record. On the way home, she said Vanessa would be fine. Vanessa married money. She said the house was wages. She told me to write it down. She died on a Wednesday, in March, at home, in the hospital bed we had put where the dining table used to be. I was holding the cup with the little sponge on the stick. At the funeral, Vanessa stood up and talked for 11 minutes about carrying our mother through her last years. People cried. A woman from the church squeezed my arm and told me my sister was a saint. At the luncheon, somebody moved my coat off a chair so family could sit down. 11 days later, a man in a polo shirt found me in the parking lot of the farm and home store with an envelope. Vanessa was suing to undo the deed. The complaint said our mother was not of sound mind, that I had cut her off from her family, that I had used a vulnerable adult for gain. It also said I had taken $40,000 out of her accounts. I had taken it out over 7 years, in amounts like $211.60. And everyone went back into that house or that woman. Then she filed a report with the sheriff. Then she wrote the post. It was long, and it was gentle, and it never once used my name. And in a town of 11,000 people, it did not have to. Our family is going through something painful, she wrote, about a person we trusted. 400 shares. I called her. One time. She picked up, and she was not angry, and that is the part I still cannot get around. She sounded like a woman taking a call about a plumbing quote. She said the house was worth $240,000 and that I had known what I was doing the whole 7 years. And she said nobody in that county was going to take the word of a man who had never held a job more than a couple of years over hers. And she was right about that for the next 6 months. Here is how a town lets you know. The farm and home store cut my hours to nothing, and the manager kept his eyes on the schedule the whole time he did it. I drove the church van on Wednesdays for the seniors, and the pastor called and said, we should pause that until things got sorted out. He used the word optics. The court froze what was left of my mother's accounts while the case ran. So the propane ran out in the second week of April, and I dragged a mattress into the room with the wood stove. I ate out of a pantry she had stocked for a woman who could not chew. Applesauce, mostly. Then in May, 2 deputies came at 7:10 in the morning. The charge was theft from a person in a protected class, a felony in this state, and they set bond at $25,000. I need $2,500 to walk out, and I did not have $400. I was in the county jail for 9 days. On the second day, a man at my table asked what I was in for. I told him the truth, because I did not know yet that you are supposed to lie. He picked up his tray and moved. By the 4th day, I had a name in there, and it was not Danny. There is a floor, and then there is a floor under that one, and it is a very quiet place. It is a man on a mat at 2 in the morning doing arithmetic about who would actually have to be called. I got to that arithmetic twice. Both times, the thing that stopped me was small and stupid. It was her handwriting on the tape on the back of the bathroom light switch. I kept thinking about who would ever peel it off. A public defender got me out on the 9th day and said the case looked thin, in the voice people use when they will not think about you again after lunch. When I got back to the house, there was a dumpster in the driveway. Vanessa had paid a company to clean out the garage while I was inside. 31 years of her ledgers, the recipe box, the coffee can of buttons, the good Christmas tin. I went through that dumpster in my church pants, because they were what they handed me back in the paper bag. I found the recipe box. That summer, I stopped correcting people about my name. At the hardware counter, at the pharmacy, a man says the wrong name, and you say yes, and it moves things along. It was not the jail, and it was not the money. It was that I stopped taking up the space of a person. In August, the stone went in at the cemetery. The beloved mother of Vanessa, it said, and under that, grandmother of 2. I stood there long enough for the sprinklers to come on. I had been the last 7 years of that woman's life, and I was not on her rock. In September, a woman named Marie Sol Vega knocked on the door. She had been Mom's hospice nurse the last 4 months, and she had driven 40 minutes on her day off. She came to tell me she had been subpoenaed by my sister's lawyer, and that she had put in writing that in 4 months of visits, she never once met the daughter. She asked if I had kept anything. I told her about the shoe boxes. There were 2 of them under the bed, packed with receipts, because a woman with a stroke had told a garage door installer to write it down for 7 years, and he had done it without ever asking why. And there was the phone. Every message my sister and I had sent since the year of the stroke was still on it, because I had never been able to afford a new phone. Marie Sol read at that kitchen table for 2 hours, then set the phone down and did not say anything for a while. Then she said, "You are letting them tell this." That was all it took. A tired woman in scrubs telling me I had a mouth. I stopped being polite in October. The first thing I did was the most boring thing I have ever done in my life. I pulled 7 years of her bank statements and sat at that table with the 2 shoe boxes and a legal pad for 19 nights. Every withdrawal got a line, a date, and a receipt stapled to it. The stair lift, $4,100. The roof, after the ice storm, because the insurance covered part of it and not the rest. The propane, the copay, the wipes, the powder that thickened her water, the ramp the church kids built out of lumber I paid for. 19 nights. And at the end of it, the $40,000 came out to $38,700 and change. And every dollar of it had an address. Then I did the thing my sister never once planned for, which was carry it into the prosecutor's office myself. No lawyer, because I did not have one. I asked at the window for 10 minutes with somebody and sat in that hallway 4 hours until an assistant prosecutor came out to get rid of me. She kept the binder. Just before Christmas, my case was dismissed before it ever reached a grand jury. The paper had run my arrest on the front page in May with the booking photo. The dismissal ran the first week of January, on page 9 under a fence auction. That is how that works, and I want you to know it, because I did not. Nobody in that town changed their mind that winter. Something in me did, which was that I had built a thing out of paper, and the paper had held. In February, my sister put a sign in our mother's yard. She had gotten her real estate license years back, and she was good at it. One of those faces on a bench at the ball field. The sign said, "Coming soon," with her photograph on it, in the yard of a house that was in my name. She had also booked an estate sale company for the first weekend of April. She texted me that afternoon. She said I should start packing, and that she had buyers who did not care about the mess. I did not text back. I took 9 photographs of that sign, with the house number in the frame and the date on the camera. Then I looked up something I had not known existed a year before, which is that in this state, you cannot advertise a property for sale without the written consent of the person who owns it. Not a lawsuit, a form. I filled out a complaint to the State Real Estate Commission, mailed a copy to her broker, certified, and paid for the little green card that comes back with a signature on it. Sit with what that green card meant for a second, because she did not know it existed for 19 days. 19 more days of her walking strangers through my mother's kitchen. Her broker pulled the sign out of the ground, himself on a Sunday, and drove it to her house in the back of his truck. That was the first time in a year that anything had cost her a thing, and it made her worse, which is what I was counting on. In March, I sold my mother's truck. It had a bad rocker panel, and it went for $3,100 to a kid who wanted it for a farm. I stood in the driveway while he drove it off, then went inside and called a lawyer named Ellen Bren a key, who did probate work out of an office above a nail salon. She took $2,500 of it and said the rest could be her problem later. She read that phone for an hour, and then she told me something I was not ready for. She said, "Screenshots are worthless. Anybody can make a screenshot," she said, "and a judge knows it. And your sister will stand up and say you made them in your garage." So we did it the slow way. We drove 90 minutes to a man who does forensic work for insurance companies, and he kept my phone for 3 days. He made a complete copy of the whole device, ran the numbers that prove a copy has not been touched, and signed an affidavit laying out exactly what he did. It cost me $800 of a dead woman's truck. At the same time, Ellen sent a subpoena to the phone company for the records on both of our numbers going back 18 months. Not what the messages said. Just that a message went from this number to that number at this minute on this day. I asked her why we needed both, since I already had the messages themselves. She said, "You never build one wall. Hold on to that, because that is the whole story." My sister learned about none of it. All that spring she filed, and she answered, and she sat for meetings, and the entire time she believed she was fighting a man with a shoebox. In April, Ellen served her with a request for every message between us and anything she had sent the estate sale company. My sister answered under oath. She said there were no responsive messages. She said she had deleted nothing because there had been nothing to delete. She swore, with her signature at the bottom, that for 7 years I had kept her away from her own mother, and that she had begged me for access. I read that answer standing up at the kitchen counter. Then I opened the phone and scrolled back to the one from the second Christmas, which is 10 words long. "Stop texting me about her," it says. "I am not her nurse." Ellen did not file it. She said, "Let her say it out loud first," with a court reporter in the room. That is the difference between being angry and being ready. In May, her side did something nobody saw coming, and I do not think her own lawyer saw it either. She produced a screenshot. It was a text, she said, that I had sent her that February. In it, I told her our mother had been in the ground 6 months, the house was mine, and she could take it up with a judge. It looked exactly right. The gray bubbles, the little timestamp, the way a phone puts the day of the week across the top. I never sent it. Ellen called me and I could hear her shutting a door on her end. She said this had turned into a credibility case, that judges believe crying sisters, and that I needed to understand what that meant. That was the worst night of the whole thing, and I had spent 9 days in a county jail. The jail I could explain to people. A message with my own name over it, I could not. I sat on the back steps of my mother's house until it got light, and somewhere around 6 in the morning, I remembered a woman in an office above a nail salon saying, "You never build one wall." February. Subpoena went back 18 months. February was inside it. The hearing was a Tuesday in June. In the old courthouse, in the room with the radiators, my sister brought people. Her husband, her broker, 2 women from the church, our mother's cousin, and a man from the county paper, because she had fed that paper my arrest once already, and it went well for her. She wore cream, and she cried. In the right places, she is good at it. And by the middle of the morning, I could feel the room settling into a shape I recognized. Then her lawyer put the screenshot up on the screen. And Judge Hal, a run who is about 70 and speaks maybe 40 words an hour, leaned toward his microphone and said he would like to see the actual messages. Not the picture of them, the phones. You could hear the radiator. Ellen stood and said the defense had anticipated the request. And she handed up the examiner's affidavit, the certified copy of my device. And the phone company records for both numbers. My sister's lawyer asked for a recess. He got 20 minutes. When we came back, the judge had the examiner sworn in, and then he did the thing I will be thinking about the rest of my life. He read them. Not all of them. He read them in order, with the dates, in a flat voice, like a man going down a grocery list. The one from the second year, where I asked her to take Mom for 11 days so I could have a hernia repaired. Her answer, which was that she was not wiping anybody. That is what I was for. The one from the third Christmas. "Stop texting me about her. I am not her nurse." The one from the birthday where I wrote that Mom kept setting a place at the table for her. No reply. He read out the dates of 51 messages I had sent about our mother that were never answered at all. Then he read the one from the 4th year, the one I had honestly forgotten, where my sister wrote that I should keep the house, that she wanted nothing to do with that place, and that she was not going to spend her life in the town we grew up in. Somebody in the second row said something out loud. The judge did not look up. Then he asked about February. The examiner explained that the image my sister had produced was not a screenshot taken by a phone at all. And it was a picture file made in one of those applications people use to mock up fake conversations, created at 4 minutes past 11 at night, 2 days before she handed it to her lawyer. And the phone company records showed no message of any kind between our 2 numbers in February. None. Not that one, not any. My sister's lawyer asked to approach. Then he asked to withdraw from the case. That is what it sounded like when it ended. A man in a good suit quietly telling a judge he could not sit next to his own client anymore. She turned around and looked for her husband. He was already on his feet. And he went out the back doors, and those old doors do not slam. They just breathe shut, slow. And she sat there in cream in a room full of people whose respect she had spent 20 years buying with casseroles. Then she looked at me. I did not do anything, because anything I did right then would have made it about me. The judge dismissed her claims with prejudice. He found the deed valid. He ordered her to pay my legal fees, every dollar. And then he did one more thing, which was refer that exhibit to the prosecutor and say on the record that a document had been manufactured to change the outcome of a proceeding. That is a felony in this state. The paper that ran my face on the front page a year before ran hers in June, above the fold. She surrendered her real estate license in August rather than sit for the hearing. She pleaded to the tampering charge that winter and got probation, community service, and a record that will be on every form she fills out for the rest of her life. I got the house, which I already had, and a check for the fees that mostly went straight to Ellen Bren a key, and a letter from the farm and home store asking whether I wanted my hours back. I did not take them. I took the propane money out of that check first and filled the tank in August, in the heat, because I was never going to be cold in that house again. Then I did the thing I had been turning over since the 9th night in county. I got licensed as a home health aide, and I work for an agency now, and I have 4 people. I write everything down, every visit, every dollar, every promise anybody makes at a kitchen table. In a notebook, I buy 3 at a time. When a daughter says she will come Thursday, I write down that she said Thursday. In the spring, I had a second name put on my mother's stone. Beloved mother of Vanessa and Daniel. I left my sister's name up there. People ask me why. Because it is true, and because our mother would have taken a strip off me for scratching a name off a rock. Vanessa and I have not spoken in 2 years. She sent one card last Christmas with a cat on it and nothing written inside but her name. I have not thrown it out and I have not answered it, and I do not know yet what that is. Being the bigger person is not the same thing as being quiet. Quiet is just handing somebody else the pen and then acting surprised when they write you out of your own mother's house. So let me ask you the thing I still ask myself. If your family took you to court tomorrow over a house and everything you ever did for them was sitting in the phone in your pocket, would those messages still be there? Or would you have cleared them out years ago to keep the peace? Tell me in the comments, because I do read them. And if you have room for one more story about somebody who found out too late what a paper trail is worth, subscribe, and I will tell you the next.